everyone, good evening. Welcome to Human Diversity, Social Justice and You program. A discussion with Oakland University Professor Dr. Chaunda L. Scott is here with us. The racial pandemic crisis in the United States has raised awareness that more critical public discussions are needed on the historical, current, and emerging racial inequality trends and their impact on our contemporary society. This presentation will highlight these trends along with some social action strategies that all citizens can draw upon to begin eradicating the social ill of racism and promote racial healing in society. Thank you very much for attending this program, and I will hand it over to Dr. Chaunda, and she will take over the discussion. And welcome to our program, Dr. Chaunda. Thank you very much for everything. I will let you talk.
Thank you almost so much for that wonderful introduction, and I'm happy to be with you today to kind of present a brief presentation on diversity and social justice. So if you have questions at the end, please, you can include them in the chat box and I'll be more than happy to answer them. So again, welcome to this presentation. I'm going to share the presentation now. Okay, so you should be able to see that. The title of the presentation is Human Diversity, Social Justice, and You. I'm a professor at Oakland University in Rochester, Michigan, in the Department of Organizational Leadership. So I'm very happy to be with you today. First, I want to thank the Clinton-Macomb Library for the invitation to present today. And I also want to thank all of you virtual attendees for registering for this presentation. To give an overview of the presentation, presently the racial pandemic crisis in the United States has raised awareness of the critical need for focus on diversity. And looking at it from a historical context, we must start there because it's just not something that has arisen today. It does have a historical context. So this presentation will highlight some of the historical trends that has brought us to this point and leave us with some things to think about and possibly ways that we can get involved to begin to promote racial healing in society. The definition of key terms is important because, we'll be using them throughout the presentation. So first term is eradicating racism, which means to abolish the marginalization of people who have been oppressed, mainly people of color, and that affords more privileges to white people. Human diversity is the ways in which we're different as well as similar. I think many times when we see the word diversity, we always think of difference, but when we look at race and gender and ethnicity, people within those groups are the same age, they experience the same time frames in life. So there's a lot of similarities that we need to consider as well. Racial healing, which means to move beyond the state of which we are now to kind of not just focus on race as it is today and join people together as one united group. Social justice means, extending opportunities of fairness and equality to all groups and not making it so difficult for them to obtain those opportunities. And I'm defining you as a social justice advocate and activist that supports equal distribution of access and opportunities for all people. So putting the social justice perspective on human diversity in context, social justice perspective is a way to understand how people from different backgrounds can come together and work to create a more inclusive and ethical environment. This perspective places a premium on freedom from oppression and on dismantling unjust power structures and dynamics. So as I said in the overview, we're going to kind of build from the historical perspectives into now so we can better understand what's happening now and basically what we need to do to combat this. So looking at the civil rights movement, when looking at it from a US perspective, things that have happened, which started in 1964, and it was a movement to really help, primarily African Americans, to have more access to civil liberties within society. This act was very important because it really raised awareness of the inequities that have existed during that time frame, 40s, 50s, and 60s. And at the time, Martin Luther King was a primary leader and organizer of the civil rights movement that really helped to bring this forward so we could get more changes in the legal, education, political, and cultural changes and prohibit all forms of discrimination. The act was signed into law by President Johnson, and it really took off to end segregation for schools. So, you could have students of all colors attending schools instead of attending segregated schools, which they were doing in the South for African Americans. In 1965, we had the Voting Rights Act that eliminated racial discrimination in voting. So right there, we have two acts. We have the Civil Rights Act of 64, then we had the Voting Rights Act. Then in 1967, we had age discrimination in employment, which prohibited age discrimination of all forms and all types of employment. Then in 1968, the Civil Rights Act was amended to provide opportunities regardless of race, creed, origin, sex, and made it a federal crime to intimidate people based on their race, color, religion, national origin, or sex. On April 4th, Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee. So that was a very pivotal moment in time because he was the main leader that put his life on line to try to bring this issue to the forefront, to end discrimination for African Americans as well as other people of color. In 1990, the Americans with Disabilities Act was established to prohibit discrimination based on disabilities. This was an important act because it really opened the door for more people with disabilities to get employment, seek education, and not just be limited by their disability from what people could see or not see, because many disabilities are visible as well as invisible. In 2010, we had the Don't Ask, Don't Tell Repeal Act, which allowed openly gay, lesbian, and bisexual Americans to serve without discrimination in the armed forces. That was very important because, again, this is a group of people that have faced all forms of discrimination based on trying to express who they are in society. In 2017, we moved forward with the Me Too movement, and that was started to highlight, the sexual violence that has been taking place among women who many times have not been able to come forward, fear of losing their jobs or various types of retaliation. By sharing their own experiences, this movement made it clear how common sexual harassment is. The hope is that if people are more aware of this type of sexual harassment that is being treated among women, that, you know, people will help to come forward to cease it when they see it. So the social action aspect of this act was giving voice publicly to the movement to dismantle sexual violence, hold offenders accountable, and increase support for sexual survivors without fear of being bashed for coming forward with this. In 2013, the Black Lives Matter movement was founded by 3 African-American women, and they came forward to, based on the acquittal of the Trayvon Martin murder case. Over decades, you know, many Black men and women have been killed unjustly by the police, some for no reason at all. And this is an issue that has really escalated beyond the US into where the UK and Canada have also been speaking out broadly on the issues of Black lives of Black men and women. So the mission of it is to eradicate white supremacy and to build local powers to intervene in violence that has been happening in the Black communities, and to combat this act by creating space for Black imagination, innovation, and centering on Black joy. Basically, the goal is to improve the quality of Black lives altogether. The social action aspect of it is giving voice publicly to this movement and engaging in peaceful protesting to eradicate white supremacy and build local power to intervene in violence inflicted within the Black communities by state and vigilantes. And I think within the 2020 to 2021, you know, we've seen more of this. And I think this was really based upon the George Floyd murder in Minneapolis, Minnesota. In 2020, as I was just saying, the Black Lives Matter movement, you know, became an international phenomenon. You know, after the killing of George Floyd by a police officer, peaceful demonstrations took place all over the country. They were in South Africa, Latin America, the United Kingdom, and they all had the same message: Black Lives Matter. The international phenomena occurred because Black people and other people from other diverse backgrounds across the globe were sick and tired of Black men and women being killed or hurt unjustly. The social action here was giving voice publicly to this critical issue and engaging in peaceful protesting to help eradicate white supremacy and build local powers to intervene in violence within the Black communities at large. Current and emerging social movements in the United States that call for social and racial justice. By framing today's movements through the lens of social justice and history, and the history of activism, we have started to open up a safe, nonviolent protest and reflective discussions that lead to social justice. I think that is one thing that has been missing. Like, racism has been an overarching issue in society as long as I can remember, but it never really gets the attention that it needs. Even within the media, when they talk about social justice or issues that are pertaining to race, you know, they always say, oh, we need to have a national conversation about this. You know, we need to do that. But unfortunately, that national conversation never takes place. It's said, but it never takes place. So understanding the evolving context, we can empower us and our young people to think how we might bring about positive changes to eradicate harmful social ills within society, which I think we're seeing more action toward this today. And I think this is wonderful. So where do we go from here? So how do we begin to address human diversity, social justice, and racial justice problems in our divided states of America? How can we become more united uh, in a more relevant and real sense, if you will? So I would love to hear your suggestions when we get to the end of the presentations for questions. So hold that thought. But I do have some examples that I would like to share on how, we can engage in and support human diversity and social justice causes. One thing I think we can do is, we need to examine our own beliefs and habits. Like, what have we been doing to either support or not support racial justice and social justice? And what habits have we constantly been engaging in? We need to have a real good hard look at ourselves. Second thing we need to do, we need to meet and make friends with people from diverse backgrounds. I think this is one of the best ways to really get to know people and maybe ask important questions that maybe you were afraid to ask. But, we need to expand our friendships across racial boundaries. I think that's just very healthy. And that's the world that we live in. We are all neighbors. So, we don't have Black neighbors, white neighbors, Indian neighbors. We are all neighbors. So we need to treat each other as such. For three, we need to engage in self-development by educating ourselves on human diversity and social justice topics by reading books, articles recommended by knowledgeable people on these topics, such as librarians, teachers, professors, college students, and then we need to share what we learned with others. I say that because there's a lot of books out there, and a lot of the books, are not always in support of racial justice and social justice. So if you're in the mindset to do that work and support that, it's very important that you read the right books with the right information so it can lead you down that path. And again, I suggest reaching out to librarians, teachers, professors, college students is wonderful. Also need to attend lectures related on this topic, by people who are knowledgeable and who've been doing research on that. I think that's very informative. They can lead you to areas to where you further want to do some research or learn more about a topic that they're talking about. So I think like attending sessions like this one at the library or at your church or at community centers or whatnot is a great way, in addition to going to universities and other educational venues that are discussing human diversity and social justice. You want to amplify and promote underrepresented voices. So again, one way to do that is to attend programs at cultural centers and the museums and whatnot, to where they're focusing on specific cultures, such as the Holocaust Museum, the African American Museum, are two wonderful choices to, consider to amplify and promote and bring people with you so you can learn. Be an ally and advocate for human diversity and social justice. Once you've done your reading and have knowledge that you can articulate well and share with others, then you are an ally, you are an advocate. So again, by sharing the information with other people, that's a great way to do that. Volunteer at social justice organizations. That's a good way to learn and really gain skills on presenting or tour guide or whatnot. It's just a great opportunity to meet people from all walks of life as well through volunteering. Number 9, you want to create space for dialogue and exchange of social ideas. So again, when you're attending presentations such as this, where you'll have an opportunity to ask questions at the end, or join book clubs or whatever, so you can talk with the group about what you read, so everybody can get, the same understanding from that, I think is a wonderful opportunity. Also, it's important to donate to human diversity and social justice organizations, in order to keep this information flowing, not only just in academia, but in the community as well. It's important that we share our resources with these venues as well. It's also important to attend city council meetings and give voice to human diversity and social justice issues in your community that needs to be addressed. It's not enough just to watch TV and agree or disagree with that. You really need to make your voice heard. And one place you can do that is at your city council meetings and board of education meetings and that type of thing. Be an active and committed citizen. Let me say this. Also, it's important to become a member of a social justice organization. Right now, there's a lot of social justice activities going on, mostly in every community. So it would be a good idea to get involved, learn more from like-minded people who are trying to do the same thing that you are. So I definitely recommend that as a great resource to do that. I think that, looking at the social justice leaders of the past and, looking at the work that they've done so well, it reminds us that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And Martin Luther King was the one who said that. I think that is a very powerful statement for pretty much what we're experiencing today, the racial tension, the cry for racial justice is very important. So if we have injustice anywhere, it's a threat to justice everywhere, which means it's not just only happening in your community, but it could be everywhere else too. So we need to really think hard about that statement. And then Mahatma Gandhi also said it well by be the change you want to see in the world. So again, you can't sit idly by and let somebody else do the work or whatever. If you're able to contribute to making the world a racially discriminatory free place for everyone to live, then you need to get active and participate in that change. So I think these are two very powerful statements that speak to the current condition that we're experiencing today. So now I want to hear from our audience, and do we have questions? And I'm interested to hear more about your ideas of what we can do as citizens to, really help to promote racial justice and social justice in our society.
I don't see any questions so far here, Dr. Chaunda, and I will let anybody have any questions. We can wait and see.
Okay.
I don't see anything, and yeah, there is one thing. Can you talk about how Reconstruction went so wrong?
How what?
Reconstruction.
Well, I think that, people really didn't further the mission. I think each generation has a responsibility to do that. So if you're looking at the civil rights movement, very active, but then after Martin Luther King died, people just kind of waiting for another leader. And I think, people have to realize this is a different time. We are all leaders. We are here now. So we have to kind of take take the responsibility to band with other people. And I think that's sort of like, I mean, people kind of were stuck in the mode of, we have to have a leader to tell us what to do. And after Martin Luther King passed away, that's a perfect example of how, I mean, it kind of really calmed down. I mean, we didn't hear any more about it. So until now, I think, I mean, we hear more voices, we see more people of color being active in the peaceful protest and whatnot. So again, I think, we're starting a different way to have leadership, but it's more group leadership than just one single person. And I think that's where we went wrong.
The same person asked again, but isn't there always a backlash to these movements?
Well, I think it just depends on what lens you're looking for from. From my particular lens, I think it's really unique because with the Black Lives Matter movement per se, people haven't, really been protesting like they have been in the 60s until now. So again, as I said previously, because we're, these are different generations, it just depends on your understanding and your support of that. If you're not a supporter of that, then maybe you'll see more as a backlash or whatever. For me, I see it more as making your voice heard, through peaceful protesting. So again, I don't really see it as a backlash. I just see it as it's a new phenomenon that's really happening during this time. And I think people are exercising their voices. And from my point of view, I think it's wonderful.
I don't see any more questions. And also you had a second PowerPoint, slide. You said that what do you suggest? So can we ask audience that what do they suggest regarding maybe you can ask that question to them, that then they will be able to hear that well and they can give their suggestions.
Yes, a question that I had earlier in the presentation was what suggestions do you have to help promote racial justice and social justice, in addition to the ones I gave?
I don't see any any suggestions in the chat box, but whatever you gave, those are all really very helpful tips you gave, Dr. Chaunda, because attending city council meetings and voices, like what are the differences, talk about our diversity and inclusion, that is very, very important in any community. So those are all good tips you gave, but I have not seen any suggestions from our audience so far. And
well,
do you?
I think that race and, racial injustice has been a topic that has not been explored. I mean, we've explored diversity,
Yes,
but we haven't included, racism as being a part of that. And I think, that is really what has hurt us, because now we're coming back to it. This is a very old issue. It's not new. And I think because we haven't discussed it since the 60s, we've just kind of just let everybody move along. But then as soon as something happens, then it rises up again. And so not until we're ready to really deal with the issue, get to the root cause and find a solution, that, to where we all can respect and grow together, then it's just always going to be that fog that's over, that cloud over us. And so it's really up to us to do something about it.
Okay, this is my question. What is your experience so far regarding this racism? And you work in Oakland University and the university. So what is your experience so far? Can you just highlight some of those experiences with us, Dr. Chaunda? regarding racism?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's a little bit different for me because I'm in academia and um, I'm a graduate of Harvard University, of Columbia University. But again, not until I say that to people, then I'm viewed differently. Once, I have to give my credentials first, and then people can see me differently. If not, then, I'm just, a Black woman from the hood, you know? So, I think that, racism is still out there. I mean, I can recall incidents to where a colleague and I were at a conference, another African American colleague, and we were shopping at the mall. And as soon as we walked into the store, people started following us, all through the store, wherever we went. And then when we left, then they walked us to the door basically, and then we were out. Or I've had incidents at, conferences to where you apply to get your, you submit your paper to get it into the conference. But yes, if it's about diversity or racism, then it's always going to be on the last day, and nobody's going to be at your presentation except for you.
Yeah, that's
So I've had that happen. I have had it to where a, a colleague and I were making a presentation at a conference, and then another colleague just kind of refuted everything we were saying, a white colleague, and then another white colleague had to tell him what we were saying was correct. And then after the presentation, that person wanted to come and apologize to us afterwards. So again, I have had numerous life experiences with racism. So, it's out there.
yes.
And it is a very
Subtle
dangerous,
way.
yeah,
A very subtle way.
it's a dangerous disease.
Mhm.
And we've got to get a hold of it, because we don't want to have future generations doing this. We're seeing more escalation of that in the general media of, college students, acting out, such as the University of Oklahoma when they had their fraternity situation, and they were saying the N-word on the bus and blah, 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 and somebody taped it, and their advisor was with them. So again, it's something that's being learned, whether it's, in the community, in homes, or whatever, but we really need to get a hold of it, because racism hurts everyone. It doesn't just hurt me, it hurts everyone.
Yeah, here there is another question from James. How do you deal with the being a minority in a majority setting when they do not feel comfortable with you being there or know how to interact with you?
How do I feel what?
Comfortable. How do you, when they do not feel comfortable with you being there, or know how to interact with you? How do you deal with being a minority? How do you deal with it?
Well,
being a minority group.
I just be myself. I can only be myself. So if
Yes.
someone doesn't feel comfortable with me, then they need to address their problem. They basically need to get comfortable, because if I'm in the room or in the class or the teacher of the class, you have to get comfortable. So again, I'm not going to spend my whole life running out the room because somebody's not comfortable with me.
Yes.
So I think that's a problem that they need to address. It's really not my problem.
Yeah. So whenever do good, be good, and do your duties honestly, then everybody will start liking us, right? When we are honest and when we do our things right, and because although they are not comfortable with us, and just we do what we are doing, our duties, and then that is the best
Right.
way to fall.
We can only do what we can do.
Yes.
We can't make people be comfortable, with us. It's been many times that I haven't been comfortable with people, but that was a problem I needed to address. So it wasn't their problem. So again, this is why I'm saying we need to get out and meet more different people from different backgrounds so we can be comfortable around everyone. We shouldn't just be comfortable around the people we know or people who look like us. We gotta,
Yeah.
we have to get over that. This is a diverse world. So, it is what it is.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Chaunda. It's a very good, very interesting subject and very interesting discussion. And we really appreciate it. I don't see any other questions. And at last, I can wait for some more time, maybe if they have any questions. I don't see anything from them. And I really appreciate it. And thank you all for attending again this discussion and also this program. We really appreciate it. Have a very good evening. Thank you. It was an excellent presentation, Dr. Chaunda. Again, we really appreciate and thank you very much for having you with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.